Hey guys, in 2021, Daniel Kokotaljo made a number of predictions about how the field of artificial intelligence was going to evolve over the next 5 years. That's up to 2026. Now, what's interesting was that some of those predictions were really on point. They were literally prescient. So when he made another prediction and called it AI in 2027, made with a number of other futurists and rationalists, as they call themselves, the world sat up and took notice. So let's look at some of his predictions and who this man is and why we should even pay any attention at all to him. So Daniel Kokotaljo is a philosophy graduate and he was working for OpenAI. And let's just say they had some differences in terms of the trajectory and the direction of the company, and he left. And I think there was an agreement that he was not supposed to talk about certain elements of the work that he did with them at the cost of losing 2 million worth of shares, because that's how these employees in these large tech companies are incentivized. And he opted out. He said, okay, I retain my right to freedom and you can keep the money. And that earned him a badge of credibility in the industry and outside of the industry. So we can tell that he's not in it for the money, and it's important to understand what his motivations are, because his predictions are earth-moving. It's a big deal, the things that he and his co-authors are predicting with respect to AGI and how it's going to change the world. So that's Daniel Kokotaljo. Now, in his 2021 article, What AI Looks Like in 2026, some of the things that he predicted that came to pass, which are significant in terms of his credibility, are: one, he predicted that GPT-3 was going to become obsolete, so GPT-3's obsolescence, and that came to pass quite rapidly. So we've seen GPT 3.5, GPT 4.0, and so on and so forth. So that prediction was correct. His second prediction was the revenues that are going to be generated were going to catch up with the high cost of training these models, building them and improving them. And that turned out to be true, because OpenAI, while it was funded as a non-profit, changed its strategies mid-tac and has actually been able to generate revenues out of the models it has created so far. So it has caught up with the cost, the investment costs. He also predicted, now in technical aspects, that the models were not going to get bigger. So these artificial intelligence chatbots or large language models are trained with trillions of data points or tokens, depending on how much. So what happens is these large language models, they scrape the internet for data and books, anything that is text. And then that text is converted into zeros and ones, because that's the language of computers. And then those zeros and ones are in combinations called tokens. And then they are used to predict. First, they are taught how to predict text. So they are taught that if you see this word, the most likely, the most probable series of words that can follow are these words. And that's called pre-training. Then they are given also transformative training, where they can respond and generate text. That's why it's called generative pre-trained transformer. So it's able to transform some of that information into a response when you interact with it. That's the nature of a large language model, a chatbot. So he predicted presciently in 2021 that these LLMs were going to become multimodal. So instead of just focusing on text, they were also going to be able to learn from images and from video, perhaps even audio, and that has come to pass. We've seen that with ChatGPT 4 and so on, and even with other models outside of OpenAI. So that's another prediction that came to pass. Now, the other predictions that he made that didn't exactly come to pass, but for those ones, he earned credibility in the industry for us to discuss his next set of predictions, which are much more foreboding, and I will get into them in the next video.